古語有云，衣食住行，隨着時代嘅進步，人類對住嘅要求越嚟越高。設計師MIHK與你暢談室內設計心得，為你介紹流行嘅設計風格，同你一齊築自室。
好啦，歡迎大家繼續收睇呢個築自室，我係MIHK，
我係 Natalie。
咁啊，今日係40集咁，41集 ，OK。咁啊嗱，我哋上一 part 咧就講緊嗰間 model 嗰間房，咁啊講下 Mr. and Mrs. John 咧就喺度調嚟調啲家私都好似唔係好啱擺，係咪？
因為佢哋擺晒喺 Naughty Lines 度。係
擺晒喺 Naughty Lines， 咁啊跟住就阿 designer 阿石內卜先生就出嚟就變，跟住就變咗一個佢認為好啲嘅位置。咁啊其實即係頭先即係大約講下啦，即係其實頭先講個 Good Nice 同埋 Naughty Nice 即係其實我都係第一次聽嘅啫，即係我第一次聽。
即係畫到好似星星咁樣。係啦，
第一次聽呢啲咁嘅比喻。咁但係其實 which is 就等於一個正方形，佢就將佢分開咗，打咗幾個十字啦，即係打咗一個米字咁樣啦。
好有切月餅嘅感覺啊！
冇錯，好有切月餅咁。哇！你真係咩都可以諗得到食㗎嘛。
冇錯。
咁啊嗱，正常嗰十字咧就 which is 就係一啲 focal point 啦。你見到其實佢將個火爐就啱啱喺個十字中間啦。咁即係其實一啲重要嘅嘢嚟嘅。which is 其實火爐對於外國人嚟講係更加重要。
因為英國好凍
係啊，好凍啊嘛。OK。咁跟住咧 and then 佢將個電視就擺咗喺另外一嘅對住嗰邊，因為其實隨住嗰個年代嘅改變咧，其實電視咧喺即係我諗10零20年前，其實都係每一家人好重要嘅一樣嘢嚟嘅。除咗火爐之外，因為大家所有嘅娛樂就會 focus 喺嗰度。
但其實而家都好重要嘅，因為而家啲人會插落個電腦度，即係用電視嚟睇㗎嘛。
係，而家對於亞洲嘅人嚟講，或者香港人嚟講都好重要。咁但係對於譬如日本啊、台灣，佢哋已經相對性係冇咁重要。
都唔係嘅，日本人有啲屋企有3部電視嘅一個廳。
咁誇張嘅咩？咪即係因為而家好多時都會少啲啦。But anyway， 呢個唔係我哋今日討論嘅話題。咁人哋跟住佢就將嗰個十字，即十字之外嘅嗰個交叉咧，佢就擺咗一啲即係可能 decoration 或者冇咁重要嘅嘢啦。咁跟住佢就會話俾你聽啊，點解要咁樣擺咧？因為其實即係譬如 sofa 就喺呢個十字度啦，咁因為其實佢覺得重要嘅嘢啦，咁火爐就一左，跟住電視機就右啦，咁啊 sofa 就對住坐啦。咁其實對住坐喺外國人嚟講係好 common 嘅嘢嚟嘅，因為佢哋好中意討論啊嘛。
即係有啲 communication
係好中意 communication 啊嘛，但係香港人咧就好中意大家都係坐住對住個電視，咁 which is 就 lack of 嗰個 communication 啦。
哦，定係因為香港人覺得坐喺隔離傾偈會再親近啲咧？即係嗰個感覺唔一樣。
其實點講咧？其實你唔會咁樣坐嘅。
因為你坐喺對面咧，其實我唔知啦，但係我有時會覺得好似有種開緊會嘅感覺咯。
其實咧你好少可會平排坐嘅，因為其實呢個 program 咧佢行好似唔係呢一集嚟嘅，我記得，即係唔係我今日 pick up 嘅呢一集。佢有另外一集咧係真係有個實驗擺一個 spy camera 去望住一張長嘅 sofa， 咁就譬如3座位嘅 sofa， 咁人哋咧就開 party， 即係有6-7個人開 party 咁樣。咁跟住嗰個 camera 就一路 shoot 住佢哋咧，就會發覺咧係冇人試過3個人同一時間坐喺嗰張 sofa 度嘅，即係冇人係會咁樣1、2、3咁樣喺度傾偈。即係定係可能有2個喺呢度，有一個喺嗰邊。係啦，即係永遠都係有個 L 啊，或者有個對住咁樣坐，即係呢個先係 conversation。即係咪因為有 eye contact？係啦，呢個先係一個 conversation 應該有嘅一個座位嘅即係擺法嚟嘅。咁所以其實就即係所以外國嘅好多時你見到佢特登買2張 sofa， 佢會對住，但係香港有好多時淨係1張 sofa 就對住個電視。定係因為冇咁多人，其實都唔需要咁多個座位啦。你可以咁樣講咯，咁但係呢個係文化上邊大家 focus 嘅位置唔同。我覺得另外一樣嘢就係 OK， 咁啊死啦，我唔係好記得啲片跟住嘅順序。我記得之後咧，佢會再解釋一次啦，點解佢會將個電視機放喺呢度啦？即係要啲嘢擺到咁對稱。係啦，佢會講話點解將個電視機放喺呢度，而將 sofa 對住坐。咁可能你會 question， 哇咁點睇電視啊 ？OK， 即係因為佢唔係直望個電視啊嘛。係斜嘅。係啦，咁佢之後有解釋嘅。咁啊但係應該唔係跟住呢條片，跟住呢條片係講對稱 which is 我上一集講嘅嘢。咁我睇咗呢條片先，我哋再翻嚟再傾。
As a rule, we carbon-based life forms tend to prefer buildings and rooms that are specifically designed to be symmetrical. But why is that?
symmetry is biologically important. If you've got a symmetrical face, it means it's got a pretty good genetic basis, that there aren't a lot of imperfections, so to speak, in the genetic coding. And it is said that particularly girls' faces are most beautiful when they're symmetrical, because that girl is a good bet to have babies from, quite honestly, you know, is what it boils down to. So that symmetry has that sort of biological advantage. Again, if you're recognizing things around you, something which is symmetrical is probably something living. It's probably a plant or an animal. Of course, animals and plants are mostly symmetrical, and it's an immediate way of recognizing something that's living from something that isn't in general.
Faces are probably the most important environmental stimulus we have. Recognizing expressions, recognizing people, and a huge amount of our brain, a huge amount of the architecture of our brain is designed to process faces. So it may be that this like of symmetry in faces spreads out into an enjoyment of symmetry in other things, in objects as well, that it's simply a generalization from faces.
係啊，咁啊呢條片就解釋咗到底咩為之靚。
點解好似變咗研究 faces 咁樣嘅？但係
我諗呢個係最容易俾人哋去了解咩為之靚，咩為之唔靚咯。即係大家嗰個可能最 common 嘅觀點就係咁樣可以去處理到底咩為之靚，咩為之唔靚。咁同埋頭先佢講一個一樣嘢，我覺得幾好嘅就係大自然其實好多嘢都係對稱。
啊，即係好似孔雀咁嘛，
好似孔雀啊、花啊，即係一啲大家覺得靚嘅嘢，其實佢係 in 一個 symmetry 都係對稱。係。咁但係好難啦，即係好似你頭先都講話啊好少你見到啲人係真係完全對稱，所以其實呢個世界上真係靚嘅人係好少。係好少嘅。咁就係啊，咁啊跟住咧就佢好似我記得死啊！我真係太多片唔記得咗。下一條片咧，佢就揾到一間屋咧，就真係對稱嘅，就 which is 一啲即係好 famous 嘅 designer 做嘅 house。咁但係我又覺得麻麻地咁樣咯。定係因為其實香港咧，我發現好少屋係四方形或者長方形嘅。你可以咁講。即係好多都係有角位啊，又或者係係咪有好多鑽石型啊？鑽石型就係以前嘅一啲唔知點解開積嘅方法，唔係唔知點解嘅，因為要採光啊，有好多泥嘅嘢。咁但係即係以前嘅唐樓就會係真係即係正方啊長啲嘅。咁所以面對住鑽石廳或者一啲奇形怪狀嘅，你就要揾翻個 designer 去處理啦。咁樣又或者你好似頭先嗰個人咁樣喺個地下度連翻一個十字，可能可以幫助得到你去解決呢一件事。但係佢尖尖地嗰啲位咁，你點處理？咁你就要揾翻一個櫃咁樣三角形咁樣揼落去。你就要揾翻個地方係點樣可以打個十字先，同埋點樣去 sort out 將佢變翻一個長方體，咁你就會感覺上面就會好啲。咁呢個係 which is 係鑽石型design 上邊嘅一啲處理方法，又或者一啲難度挑戰嘅方法啦。咁但係如果你真係有呢個需要嘅，你可以將個平面圖寄俾我，我幫你處理，好唔好 ？OK。咁啊嗱，睇第二條片先。
Of a stonkingly brilliant architect like Charles Rennie Mackintosh, the furniture and finishing touches of houses like this were considered from the very outset. Now, I know I have already mentioned the importance of focal points, but they are important. The eye is constantly searching for stimulation, and focal points provide a point of interest for the eye to settle on and explore.
Bedrooms have two views. They are rooms with two halves.
The first is what you see when you're lying in bed. Here, a Mackintosh chair is perfectly framed with symmetrical wardrobes either side.
The view of the bed is equally symmetrical, with embroidered hangings and mosaic niches either side to draw your eye. But what Mackintosh did that was so clever is he created a back reference to old-fashioned romantic four-poster beds, but he did it architecturally with masonry and plaster, simulating the effect of draped fabric. The atmosphere of this room is tranquil, it's serene, it's balanced, it's ordered. It's perfect for a bedroom.
我唔會幫你，我唔會將你 off mic 嗰句説話講出嚟，因為你一定唔係睇戲你先會去嗰個地方。Okay?
我係驚睇戲，你唔係真係會去。
唔講，我哋 off mic 唔講 ，OK？
但係你仲笑緊。
anyway， 我想講咩啊？頭先嗰間屋。咁就係佢係一個絕對對稱嘅擺位嘅方式去擺嘅，即係譬如你睇到嗰個廳啊、飯廳啊，佢係好對稱嘅。咁而去到間房就更加誇張啦，即係好似
嗰兩個櫃中間
唔知點解要有張凳咁。呢次我諗到而家我都諗唔到點解中間要擺張凳咧。咁
即係如果你俾我，一定會擺好多嘢喺張凳度。
咁就同埋床頭就係一個對稱嘅嘢啦。咁我覺得床頭對稱 which is 其實 OK 嘅，因為床頭你有時你望埋去咧，你覺得對稱你會舒服啲嘅。咁但係當床尾即係你望住嗰埲牆，咪真係要絕對對稱？我又有少質疑，
即係你嗰兩幅畫都要有兩幅咁樣。
咁即係嗰幅畫仲要 mirror 咗咁樣，咁同埋個廳去到一個絕對對稱，譬如飯台同埋嗰啲櫃嘅絕對對稱，即係我覺得喺一個以前嘅英式或者法式或者歐式傳統歐式嘅design 上面係 OK 嘅，因為佢哋要追尋呢一樣嘢嘛。咁但係如果用於現代嚟講咧，如果你住喺一個完全對稱嘅一個空間上面，其實你係會癲嘅，好
有壓力啊！
係啦，即係你會連擺個少少死啦，
我將佢歪咗，我要移翻，
就要移翻去。咁其實係會令到你好有壓力嘅。咁所以我又覺得即係喺現代嚟講，呢一樣絕對對稱嘅嘢唔係一樣真係咁合時宜嘅一啲嘢。譬如你去舉個例啦，即係大家即係容易啲接受。譬如你去 Venetian 酒店、威尼斯人咁樣，咁我嗰啲係好傳統歐式啦。咁你去住幾晚，你會覺得哇好靚啊，咁啊左右對稱啊，好工整啊，你入去會覺得好靚。但係呢個唔係一個你嘅生活嚟㗎嘛，即係你唔可以
翻到屋企係咁樣嘅，
你唔可以強迫每一日擺嗰杯水都要唔對稱，擺翻呢個位。或者擺個咩啫？即係你會傻咗啊！你個人你會傻咗，即係你唔可以咁樣生活噶嘛。咁所以呢個就係即係我自己覺得咧，係咪絕對對稱係一樣好嘅嘢咧？咁而 which is 跟住現代有好多人去處理一個 design 嘅時候，就開始玩一啲特登去做唔對稱嘅嘢啦。咁但係點解我哋之後再傾？因為我好似仲有2條片嘅，我睇埋下一條片先。
Out of sight is out of mind. Oh, and take note of the clever storage above the door. The layout of the furniture in here is completely dictated by one thing. This, the storage. I could not use storage on any other wall without it fouling the windows. Originally, like most Western bedrooms, I would imagine the bed was supposed to go there, which meant that half of it was shielded as you opened the door, because that, once upon a time, was a chimney breast. But it's a different story in the East. According to Feng Shui, the ancient art of health, wealth, happiness and furniture arrangement, your bed should always be placed so that you can see people as they come into the room. Also, your head must always be supported by a wall, so no beds just left in the middle of the room then. And another thing, your feet should never be sticking in the direction of a door. It's all very complicated, it's all very oriental, and, you know, it's down to whatever floats your boat, really. Or in this case, your junk.
其實頭先咧就佢開始將嗰間紫色房就做咗一啲 renovation 啊，已經擺位啦。咁就佢又講咗咧，即係一般嘅外國人咧，佢哋好中意將個床頭咧就擺喺
窗嗰邊啊嘛，係嘛？
唔係，我唔應該咁講，我再 rephrase 過。一般嘅外國人好中意將嗰隻即係床尾咧就啱啱係隻窗嚟嘅，即係對住窗嘅。咁佢哋變咗一起身嗰一刻咧就會見到隻窗嘅。OK。咁呢個一般外國人嘅擺位嘅方法嚟嘅，咁但係而佢亦都即係頭先個 designer 亦都好好，佢就講話但係對於中國或者亞洲嚟講咧，佢哋有個風水嘅考慮咧，就係佢哋中意將嗰啲隻窗咧，其實就 parallel to 你嗰個人嘅。OK， 即係 parallel to 你張床。譬如我咁樣瞓嘅時候咧，咁嘅窗就最好喺呢度。喺側邊嘅。係啦，喺側邊，而到門就最好喺左邊。係。咁但係其實呢個亦都即係呢個係另外一個嘢嚟嘅，因為好多人間屋細啊嘛 ，OK， 咁你當然你一開門，通常你一開門，你第一件事就會對住隻窗噶啦。係啊係啊。即係好多房都係你一開房門，你就會見到隻窗噶嘛。咁所以你咪唯有將咁，但係你又唔想 即係你唔想個床頭咧就喺度門嘅隔離，即係呢個盡量係避免嘅。即係譬如你一開門之後咧，最好右邊咧就唔係你床頭嘅位置。
其實點解嘅？
因為有少少心水不寧嘅。哦。因為譬如你一開，你成日咧，你會覺得有人可以開閂咧，你唔能夠第一眼就望得到個門口到底邊一個入嚟咧。係你會覺得自己心理上面係唔係咁好啊？即係你永遠都希望喺一個位置上面，你可以睇得晒到底外面有啲乜嘢，同埋嗰間房入嚟有啲咩人，即係你心理上面你先會覺得好啲嘅。咁所以 that's why 佢頭先就話你要將張床擺喺另外一邊，即係一個有大牆嘅位置，你見得到嗰度門啦。OK， 咁同埋你頭先講嘅就係，如果我個床頭喺隻門隔離咧，其實你成日都會聽得到外面呢啲有啲咩人經過行嚟行去。咁如果你一個人住，你凌晨3點鐘你聽到出邊有人行嚟行去咧，咁你都唔知開唔開門好啊。
聽㗎嘛，你聽先至聽到有人行嚟行去嘅，即係出邊你房點解會有人喺度行嚟行去？唔係啊，
你房即係外面你個門，如果喺你隔離，你瞓喺度嘅時候，你忽然聽到外面有人行嚟行去，而你係一個人住嘅時候，你咪會令到你心緒不寧咯。哦，係。OK， 咁所以佢就會覺得即係咁，但係其實如果對於一間大嘅房嚟講，當然係最好嘅擺位就係你一起身你就望到隻窗啦。咁即係就好似佢一開始咁講。
但係其實如果睡房大到某一個地步嘅時候，會唔會有人將即係譬如而家你間房係咁樣㗎啦，將張床擺中間嘅咧？
從來呢個世界都唔會有人將張床擺喺中間嘅。點
解咧？
因為你唔 secure 嘅，即係你瞓覺個床頭，如果你冇一樣嘢喺度頂住你咧，你係唔會覺得 secure。即係
真係睇戲先有嘅。
睇咩戲會有張床？
我睇過有日劇咧，啲房好大，講嗰個人好有錢，跟住張床係喺中間。
咁佢應該背脊都會有一啲床頭 pan 嘅嘢，
係有嘅，
即係你一定要有啲床頭 pan，或者一啲你可以挨喺度嘅嘢，即係你要起翻一幅牆去俾自己，但係你唔會將一個無啦啦將一個即係 mattress 放喺嗰個間房嘅中間，然後你瞓喺中間就會非常非常之少咯，即係唔會有人會咁樣處理。你永遠都希望你床頭有個背喺度去靠住嘅。咁係啦，頭先講就話，如果你間房好大，你可以將自己擺咗張床之後，你都可以望得到嗰個門係喺邊度，然後你前邊係有一隻窗，咁呢個 design 當然係最開心啦。
即係窗其實係應該係你對住，即係你望到啊，定係喺側邊好啲？
其實你望到會最好嘅，即係你都會覺得開心啲嘅。喺側邊係因為而家香港啲屋太細，咁你冇得選擇嘅情況底下，你喺側邊就會好啲。即係譬如如果好似我哋而家呢個 studio 前面係一個牆咁樣，咁我哋隻門喺我哋嘅左手邊，
我哋都算隻窗喺呢邊嘅。
咁如果我哋瞓喺床頭喺呢度，即係你幻想下，你一起身前面係一個落地玻璃，跟住你燙開玻璃，你可以行出去，咁你應該係會覺得開心啲嘅。咁但係你 at the same time 你都可以望得到有邊一個入嚟，咁就會好啲。好，係咪仲有一條片啊，斌哥？係播埋嗰條片 overrun 少少，跟住我哋就去下一節。
Traditionally, the fireplace was always the focal point around which you would arrange your furniture. But nowadays, this often competes with the television for centre stage. When television first became widely available, nobody tried to conceal the fact they had one. In fact, quite the reverse. These days, I don't think that people think about televisions enough. They either just say, OK, fine, I'm going to celebrate that great big technological monolith in the corner, or they hide it away in a chintzy little cabinet. I really believe that a television can be incorporated into a modern design scheme, but first of all, you have to work out where you're going to put it.
So, back to Mr. and Mrs. John. Why did they get this room so wrong? They committed the first mistake. So many of us do it, putting the television in the corner of the room, which means that the sofas end up in the opposite corner of the room. And look, connected by this fantastically naughty diagonal line. What I did was move the television from there to there. And see, that is on the straight right-angled line that connects it right up to the principal focal point of the room, the fireplace. Because in the 21st century, as far as we're concerned, the most important focal point of any sitting room is the television. So, okay, But isn't that going to be uncomfortable? No, let me show you. Look, our grandparents sat on sofas like this, all very perched. We sit on sofas like this. See, Mr. John has got a perfect view of the match, whereas Mrs. John can have a lovely view of the fireplace. And as if all that wasn't good enough, when they've got friends round, the perfect conversational arrangement where they can talk about things like what it's like being a John.
So, let's look at a good example of this in the real world. This is an extremely good example of a balanced living room, a room where everything is considered right from the very beginning. Even the last-minute details are part of the scheme. The colour scheme itself is taken from the collection of black and white photographs, which of course are rarely black and white, but a series of neutrals. So hence the stripes, hence the browns, hence the taupes. What I find fascinating is the slight subversion of the rule of good and naughty lines. We've got a straightforward axis that goes right the way through the windows out to the river, but then so that that view can be enjoyed at the same time as television. Television's been squeezed in on, technically speaking, slightly naughty diagonal line in the corner, but it works because on the other side it's balanced by a black sofa. So few people actually realise that a black television screen is something that can be used to the benefit of a space, as long as it's considered along with all the elements. And in fact, this room also shows that modern technology, televisions, hi-fis, in my case wind-up gramophones, can and should be incorporated into a scheme. In fact, the column speakers either side of the window frame the view. And what a view. So it's about balance, it's about order, it's about conceiving and considering the room as a whole, even down to the finishing touches.
Hey boy.
哇，好大隻啊！哇，勁型啊！嚇，冇頭髮嘅，原本好得，點知俾幾執頭髮害死咗喎！想改寫命運就食樂兒本草凝發植物膠囊啦，佢祖傳藥方，直接為你嘅頭髮補充營養，仲強肝腎補血氣，香港製造，食用放心。你都想試下嘅話，快啲嚟 MIHK.TV 訂閱我哋低俗頻道或者啤梨漫步1年，再 like So Life 嘅 Facebook 專頁，就即刻免費送你一樽60粒嘅樂兒本草凝發植物膠囊，數量有限，仲送完即止㗎。